Welcome to my review for Life, the 2017 version, and not the Eddie Murphy comedy that came out around about 1999, 2000. I actually watched that film with a friend of mine after a few drinks one night, and we both found it really funny, but it's not my sort of thing, really. I've never gone back to it since. No, this is definitely a review for the sci-fi slash horror film. I've put both of the genres on the thumbnail. I think it's the first time in my review series I've put two different genres on that line just under the Midnight Woodsman, because this is definitely a sci-fi film, it's definitely a horror film, so to call it one or the other would be sort of false, I think. I've not actually intended to do a review for this. I watched it the other night, and after it was over I thought to myself, no, I've got to do a review for this film because I just feel like I want to talk about it. Sometimes I plan to do a review for a certain film and then just can't be bothered afterwards. The Crazies by George Romero is an example of that. I went out and bought a Blu-ray and thought this would be a really cool review, a classic Romero film from the early 70s, that'd be quite interesting. And even though the film was okay after it, I was just drained of life when it came to sort of trying to plan a review, so I just decided to skip out. I think it's best not to be too rigid sometimes when you're planning what to do in terms of reviews and rankings and stuff. So the story for this one involves a science exploration team who go to Mars and pick up this soil sample with a tiny little creature inside the soil. They know it's there and it seems to be dead at first, so they take it on their ship and head for home, and that's the point where the film starts. We don't see anything on Mars. But this creature slowly starts to grow and become alive, and then it just starts to take over the ship and kill everybody on board, basically, and that's the entire movie. Now, if you've never seen the film, you're probably thinking to yourself, that sounds a little bit like Alien, and I guess there are similarities in the story, but it's nothing like that, honestly. The first thing I did after watching this film was go online just to see what the people's opinions are of this, because it's just not a film I'd really heard of until last week. And one of the first opinions I read was, oh, it's an Alien rip-off, it's just knocking off Alien. No, the alien in this film is nothing like the xenomorph from those movies, and even the rest of the movie just feels completely different. I mean, if you're going to watch this film and say that it's knocking off Alien, then you're basically saying there can never ever be another film that has a nasty alien in it that kills people. You know, this is as close to Alien as Child's Play is to Michael Myers. You know, they're both slasher killer films, but still nothing like each other, so that's not really a criticism that I will accept. I'm sorry. So let's get into the positives then and start with the actual creature itself. This thing is a thing of beauty. I mean, it's a hell of a design for a really nasty space creature. It's hard to describe it in terms of how it looks. It's kind of like a rubbery, flowery thing with tentacles, and yet it doesn't get that big. It only grows as big as, say, a large dog. I mean, but it's very clever at hiding. It can hide in like overhead compartments. It hides up some guy's trouser leg at one point, and yet when it's visible on the screen, it's in your face. It's large enough that it can kill you in a really nasty way. The way that this thing kills people is just horrible. I was talking about Michael Myers earlier. I would much rather be stabbed to death by Michael Myers or throttled by him than have to face up to dying by this creature, because the way that it takes people out in this film is just nasty. I'm not going to try and give too many spoilers away about this film, because I imagine most people watching this might not have caught this film. But yeah, it's a really nasty killer in terms of the way it finishes people off, right up there in terms of the xenomorph for that, because you wouldn't want to get killed by a xenomorph either, particularly. And this thing is flame resistant. At one point, a guy gets a flamethrower out and you're thinking, yes, torch that thing. And it's just got completely flame resistant skin, so the flames just bounce off. It doesn't do anything to it. It sounds silly, but when you're watching the film and see that the way the creature has been designed, it's not silly at all. It's perfectly believable, actually. It's just got this kind of rubbery, see-through-y type skin that you could imagine would be resistant to flames. It's not like there's any other weapons on the ship. It's a bit Alien 3-ish in that regard. You know, I mean, this is a science exploration team who have gone to collect samples from soil originally, so it stands to reason they wouldn't be carrying around things like Uzis and shotguns. A flamethrower's all they've got, and they're sort of lucky to have that, I suppose. The scene where the creature comes forth for the first time is probably the best scene in the film. It's so full of tension because you don't know what this creature can do at this point, and yet you know that it's going to get out and start doing nasty things, because otherwise what is this film, and what's it here for? It must be about the creature and the fact that it's going to cause mayhem. So we sort of know that the creature is about to make its move. It's coming alive. You can see that, and it's starting to grow a little bit, and it's starting to become aware of its surroundings. And when it comes forth, wow, I mean, as soon as the first guy dies, I'm thinking to myself, oh shit, I would not want to be any of the other people on the ship after watching that death. And the other people who were there, the other passengers, they see the first death. I'll give that much away. So they can see what's happening to this one person, and I thought to myself, oh, if I was in their shoes, I would just want to go and hang myself or something. I would not want to face up to this creature with that kind of fate in store. That would be absolutely awful. The film mostly continues along a path of the astronauts either finding new ways to fight the creature or just looking at ways into escaping. There's one moment where they send somebody onto the outside of the ship to try and fix communications so they can warn Earth as to what's going on. But it turns out the creature can actually breathe outside the ship and get out there easy enough by slipping through cracks, so that doesn't go too well. There's lots of messing around with escape pods in the final third. There's a moment where they try and barricade themselves into one particular part of the space station and deprive the rest of the rooms of oxygen to try and kill the creature that way, but that doesn't work. It's quite unpredictable what's going to happen from one segment to another. The only thing you can sort of guarantee is that slowly but surely the human characters will die off one by one in various sticky ways. There's a great scene where this one guy jumps into this sleep pod in desperation because he sees the creature's about to get him. This is a type of sleep pod that for some reason is erect rather than lying down. He just gets in on time, but the way that the creature jumps onto the glass, slowly cracking it at the sides, and the expression on his face, it really sent a chill up my spine, that particular part. The ending, I'd say, is quite satisfying. It cleverly flips what your expectations are, because at a certain point going into the last 5 minutes, you think, oh, I think I've got this nailed down now in my head as to how this is playing out, and then it just gives you one last twist. I'm not going to say whether it's a happy twist or a bleak twist, but it left me wanting more of this world and this creature. They call the creature Calvin, the characters in this film, because when he's like a tiny little thing and he hasn't turned bad yet, they give him a sort of pet name. So for the rest of the film, even when he's killing people, they're like, oh, where's Calvin? Oh, we can't pick him up. Oh, we're going to have to kill Calvin. You know, they're just constantly calling him Calvin. It's kind of weird that they've got a name for him and he's not just the beast or the alien, you know. I'll say it left me wanting more. I don't think there will be more. This film came out 4 years ago. There's been no sign of a sequel ever since. And if you look at the money it made, 100 million off a 50, 60 million pound budget, you'd probably think, well, they're probably going to leave it well alone now. And there could have been marketing costs on top of that 50, 60 million. Although having said that, I've never really heard of the film across the last 3 or 4 years. So maybe they didn't spend anything on marketing. I don't know. Curious thing. After I'd finished watching it on Amazon Prime the other night, I was recommended another film by Amazon Prime called Gravity. And given that life had put me in such a sci-fi mood all of a sudden, the following night I did watch Gravity. And both films are set on the International Space Station, which was kind of weird. Now, Gravity made 700 million. Life only made 100 million. They're both films chock full of A-list actors. Life has got Rebecca Ferguson, Jake Gyllenhaal, Ryan Reynolds. It's an amazing cast. I mean, the film could have done great with just one of those guys, realistically. It's got 3 of them. Maybe it spent too much money on top quality actors who were all demanding 10, 15 million. I don't know how much they spent there. Gravity's got Sandra Bullock and George Clooney. Now, both, like I said, both films set on the International Space Station. One of them has an alien terrorizing everybody, and the other one is just about an Apollo 13 type situation where the gravity, the oxygen's running out. There's been a few system malfunctions, stuff like that, and the characters are trying to plot a way to survive. One of those films made 7 times more than the other one, so it just left me thinking, do audiences are maybe not that keen on watching aliens running around a space station anymore? I don't know, it's a weird thing. Now for my negatives, and I've got 2 today because this isn't a perfect film by any stretch. So firstly, Some of the characters act very unprofessionally in this when it comes to following health and safety protocols. They're very lapsadaisical when it comes to working in and around the science lab where the creature starts out. You would think as well that highly trained astronauts would be very good at making logical, rational decisions rather than emotional ones at times of great distress, yet that doesn't seem to happen in this film at all. There's one scene where they could easily have trapped the creature in a room and that would have been the end of the whole affair, albeit they would have had to have sacrificed one of their friends who was inside that room. But no, they try and get the guy out. The creature ends up getting out and now they're all at risk again. And this happens at quite a few different spots during the film where some of the decision making is a little bit bizarre, but anyway. My other complaint would be that the film starts in an odd place. We literally begin the story where the astronauts already have the soil sample and they're flying away from Mars. I kind of feel like we've missed out on a whole introduction phase where these astronauts land on Mars, we go and explore some caves and see some weird stuff, and then we find the creature in a block of ice or something, then we go back to the ship. There's no build-up in this film. If you compare it to Alien, I mean, one of the best things about Alien was that whole expedition where Kane and those other two went to the alien ship where the engineers were. It was all dark and you saw all these amazing things, and then they go back to the ship with the creature inside Kane. There's nothing like that in life. We literally cut to the point where they already have the creature on the ship and they're starting to study it. And it kind of feels to me like we miss out on a whole lot doing it that way. The film's only 108 minutes as it is. I'm sure with a film like this, they could have spent an extra 20 minutes at the start just building things up a little bit more slowly. It just seems to be the way these days that films like this tend to not have that long introduction. I said the same thing in my review for Underwater, another kind of sci-fi horror hybrid. That film literally jumps straight into the problems with everybody suffering this intake of water that means they're all in danger of drowning if they don't get up to the surface, but there's no build-up. It's literally straight into it, and it happens here again with life. They're mostly small issues on the whole, though. This is still an excellent film. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the PS4 game Prey, which would have come out the same year as Life, actually, 2017. That was a game about a space station and there were creatures on it which had a similar type of genetic makeup to the creature in Life. In Prey, I mean, the creatures could disguise themselves as coffee cups and things. In Life, it's a little bit more realistic. It's, the creature can't do stupid things like that, but it can slide through like cracks in the doorway like the creatures could in Prey. But I'm not going to dwell on this too long because most people probably haven't played that game. Right, let's get to the bag of terror and find out what sort of score we have for Life. There's lots of life in this bag today, ho-ho. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 bloody axes out of 5 for Life. I do think it should have been 4 lightsabers out of 5 maybe, but there we go. I'll be back soon with another review. I definitely recommend this film. I will be adding it to my shelf as soon as a good opportunity arrives. And that's all for today. Cheerio, bye-bye.